So let's start with about maybe a very quick introduction for yourselves. Let's plan about 90 seconds, each of you. You want to start with Dorothy, please?
Okay, so hi everyone, can you hear me clearly? All good, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm Dorothy, I'm the co-founder of Engage Rocket. So we are a HR tech company born and bred here in Singapore. Primarily what we do is we collect and analyze employee feedback in real time throughout the employee journey from the first day all the way to the last day. And the main thing is because we want to achieve two things. We want to help organization enhance their talent management practices in order to achieve higher retention and better productivity.
All right. Hi everyone, my name is Daniel. We're a hybrid manpower and tech company. We make it easy for office managers to run their space by taking care of their cleaning, stock taking, buying of snacks, handyman service. So we actually employ primarily janitors, and we use an app to help office managers run their office easily.
Okay, thank you. So like I shared just now, when I invited these two to join the webinar, I asked for a really authentic and very genuine sharing. So we'll start with Dorothy again. So you just closed your Series A in March, right?
Yeah.
So by then, I think the COVID was becoming very real. Wuhan was I think Wuhan was really shut down, and in Southeast Asia, you see the waves coming in as well. So what were you feeling in the midst of closing it? Because I think you completed almost towards the end of March. So in that whole process, I think in front of investor, you got to look very tired and very confident. How were you feeling inside? Seriously, were you preparing for?
First of all, we are very, very grateful. I think we really closed Series A in the nick of time, right? So if I can actually talk about the timeline, we signed all the closing documents in mid-March, and then we actually got all the money in bank by end of March, and then circuit breaker happened first week of April. So it's really like, if you think about the first quarter of 2020 was like crazy, right? But I think in terms of like feelings, we were generally okay. There wasn't too much of a fear that our investors will go away. I mean, we signed the term sheet end of the year. So really over Christmas, New Year period, we signed the term sheet. And I think fundamentally, founder-investor relationship is a two-way street, right? So something that I think is very important is, as much as investors are choosing the startups they want to invest in, founders are also assessing the investors who are investing in them. So I think we've been very privileged so far that all our investors share the same value, the same vision, belief in what the company is trying to achieve. So from that standpoint, I think we have a pretty high degree of confidence in the investors that came on board Engage Rocket. One thing I will be grateful for is that, I think the COVID-19 really exploded or became a more serious thing after Chinese New Year. January, up until Chinese New Year, people are still like, oh, maybe it's more of a personal concern thing. It wasn't like a business or economic concern thing, right? It's only after Chinese New Year that, organizations, you start seeing organizations implement BCP, right? And we sell primarily to HR. So we got wind of it like quite early on that, oh, this is starting to affect business. So at the point of time, we're already highlighting all of this, but thankfully for us, our lead investor in Series A, they are pretty hands-on. So we are actually on calls with them almost on a weekly basis. And I think come March, when things became very serious, I think the main thing whenever we got on the call, the first thing is, are we done? Are we progressing? Can we close the round quickly so we can focus on really the business thing? So I think that one we really appreciated, because as founders, we cannot go and ask you, right? Like we cannot go and ask investors. So them volunteering the information, like let's close this and let's focus on how we can ride through this. I think it's something that as founders, we really appreciate it. Yeah.
So if I may just summarize, the key takeaway I have from you is it's a two-way street. Yeah, because I think the past few weeks, especially the past 2 weeks, I think I've got a lot of calls from founders who say that the investors it was still verbal commitment. And then when the whole thing went south, the investors is like, we still believe in you, but this is just not the right timing.
Yeah.
So it's quite unfortunate. Okay.
Yeah.
If we could hear from Daniel, what was happening at your end actually during this same period of time? I know that you launched a new product actually in 2020, right? That was actually targeting more towards the B2C side. And towards the end of 2019, you actually were preparing to really ramp up. So you had really good, big, ambitious plans for 2020.
Yeah.
So how was it doing for you?
I think for us, we took a different path from Engage Rocket in the sense that we closed a good round with AngelCentral, and we were profitable in 2020. So we were basically very bullish, like you mentioned, and we were growing. I think between January to March, I looked back at the numbers again. We were growing like 20% in revenue every month, right? And at the time in January, like what Dorothy said, it was not full blown yet. We were still actively talking to all our customers. There was no signs that they intended to pause service due to the COVID situation. And then we saw a growing demand in B2C, an area that we were familiar with, and we wanted to launch a new product line there because we were profitable. But of course, from our point of view, March was our peak, and then that all came crashing down 3rd April when Prime Minister Lee announced that most non-essential workspaces are to be closed due to the circuit breaker, right? So on that same weekend, 4th to 5th April, customers started to call us to say that because their office are closed, then they would like to basically pause any facilities spend or maintenance spend, asking us for pro rating, all in one weekend. So it all happened very fast from our point of view. Of course, we've been surveying customers, right? But I think what Authority said was absolutely spot on in the sense that it became a full-blown crisis really, I think March and April when people started about cost cutting and all that kind of thing. So yeah, it was just in a weekend, it was clear our revenue was going to take a hit.
Yeah.
So it's literally overnight. As in you see it coming and then it just hit you.
We see it coming, you double check your customers, they say don't worry, you still worry, but you move on, the numbers are good, you're profitable, you plow on, and then it really did happen, right? So then when the tsunami hits, then you start to react, which is a very aptly named webinar, right? Reacting, right? You are really reacting to this. Yeah.
So just to give a sense of a percentage, when you say did it hit you like affect your top line 50%, 80, 90%?
Yeah. So from January to March, as I was saying, we're growing at 20% per month. We are doing, by the way, six digits, right? So we're middle 6 digits numbers monthly, and then it was clear over a weekend it was like going to be a 50% decline in revenue. Where we took stock of all the calls and the numbers we were telling, it was about 50% decline, which was very significant.
Yeah. Audrey, are you comfortable to share?
For us, a bit different. We're not profitable yet. And I think we saw it a bit earlier just because each contract that we sign, I mean, we are B2B, right? So each contract we sign is usually like 5 digit. So when we're talking to HR, I think like by the end of February, we already got a lot of comments, like our entire pipeline was just like on hold. Like all the HR was just saying, not now, I'm very busy with BCP. I talk to you later about this, right? So like we had a lot of our pipeline was pretty strong. Coming off a strong 2019 into 2020, actually our pipeline was quite strong. End of Jan, you make the excuse that people are coming back from the holidays and then Chinese New Year is coming soon. By end of February, it was getting a bit strange really because last year, February, we did well. And then this year, February, it was like everyone was just like, we are very busy with BCP. At the same time, we were also getting a lot of pushbacks on our renewals because we are B2B SaaS, right? So it's both new contracts and renewals. So by the time March hit us, we were monitoring very, very closely already. So I think mid-March, by first, second week of March, my co-founder and I were already talking about let's relook at our revenue numbers. Let's redo our projections and see what measures we need to put in place in terms of both like boosting of revenue and also cutting cost perspective. And then end of March came, and then we looked at Q1 numbers. It was just confirmed not good lah. So from granted, we set very aggressive targets for ourselves this year. And from a new sales perspective, we barely were making 10% of what we were targeting for Q1. And then from a renewal perspective, we were expecting 100% renewal, and that was riding off 100% renewal last year, right? So it's performance, well, it was like 80-90% renewal. So we're expecting 100% this year, looking at all the accounts. But I think we only managed to finally secure about 40% revenue retention for existing customer in Q1. So that was really like that point of time. It was like, this is real. This is like going to affect our business for sure. So obviously at that point, then we need to start thinking about like, okay, what are we going to do? One of the very first thing we did was, besides cost cutting, of course, is how can we leverage on COVID-19, right? Take it as an opportunity to actually get even more business. So that's something that we also looked into.
Okay, actually, you gave me a very good linkage to my next question. So actually, when the customers were telling you about BCP, and then you're thinking about cost cutting, and what is the drastic stuff that you guys had to do?
Yeah, so by end of March, we haven't really introduced anything drastic yet. We began to cut all. I mean, we all started 2020 with like a lot of growth in mind, right? Like what Daniel said. So all of that, we need to throw it out of the window already. So like all the new hires that we were planning to make is like immediately like don't even talk about expanding the team already. And then circuit breaker came. I think starting 1st of April onwards and March onwards, I think things escalated very, very quickly because it exploded into Europe and then went into the US. And then it became a really global economic crisis thing. So at the point of time, I remember first week of April, we announced to the entire company a few things. We didn't have to cut anyone, thankfully, because we have always hired very lean. So we never really hired excess capacity. And we earlier in the year, we already let go of 2 poor performers. But then poor performers, you should always be you should always be letting go of poor performers, regardless whether of COVID-19 or not. So we didn't have to cut people, but immediately first week we announced that we are freezing hiring, which means that there are people who resigned and actually the role is empty, right? So like, for example, we have an empty product manager role. We're not going to be filling it for the time being. And then we're cutting software and we are slashing marketing budget to the disappointment of my marketing manager. And we are cutting all freelancers that we're using. So sometimes we, use freelancers to help us out, when we have time crunch or whatever, cut everything. So it wasn't very drastic, but we did that. And then after the first week, again, even the first week of April, the first week of circuit breaker, it was like everyone's just reacting to it, right? So we re-looked at our projection again. Okay, can we do something to cut even further or to protect our runway? Because we just raised and we don't want to take that for granted. So in the second week, we announced further measures. So second week, we told our company, all our employees that not only are we freezing hiring, but because first and foremost, we want to protect all our existing employees, right, and their livelihood. So we are also retracting signed offers. So that means earlier in the year, we actually recruited people and there's a signed offer, just that they haven't joined us yet because they are serving notice or whatever. We are also we will be rescinding the offer letters. So very unfortunate because some of them actually already resigned from their previous job. So we are also doing that because fundamentally, I think between my co-founder and I, we want to protect our own staff first. And then we're cutting variable pay. So that was another drastic measure we made. So no bonuses, no comms component or out of the window, except for sales. So sales, we had to keep comms sales, no motivation to drive them to do sales. And we also called up all our interns who are due to come in this summer during their summer break and basically said, no internship unless you're willing to accept no pay, which some of them thankfully did. So that was the last round. So that was second week. Then this week is the third week and we didn't introduce anything this week. But what we did is we wanted to have some sort of rhythm because I think for employees it's very scary to not know, right? Like just waiting every day for you to announce something new. So what we told them is that expect to hear from us every 2 weeks from now on. So last week we said every 2 weeks we give you an update. If there's no update, there's no update. But the cadence that we'll be updating you in terms of a company situation will be every 2 weeks until this whole thing blow over.
Yeah, I think also to I think it was 2 days ago, right? That the article on Duolingo and all these things. I think the key learning from that is actually making communication very clear,
Yes.
and so that they know good news, bad news. This is the time that's going to come, so that for the rest of the week they still have peace of mind.
Yeah.
Actually, it just brought up on the staff side, right? I just thought of one question for Daniel. Actually, the bulk, more than 60% of your hire, you mentioned actually are the crew, your cleaning crew, right?
Yep.
And actually a different. I mean, most of them actually the economic circumstances are very different from us.
Yep.
Do you see any? I mean, they are definitely getting hit, and the thing is, in Feb, in March, they were all 100% and all fully deployed. They're all working very hard. But then when this thing comes, they are the first group to take the brunt of the hit. How was it from your side? How you manage them and how you keep the morale of this group?
Yeah. So I think for us, people is the heart of my business model. So we when we saw the drastic cuts in 3rd to 4th April in revenue, we were very, very sensitive to low wage workers, and we wanted to ascertain the facts on our runway, what it meant. So I think for me, the drastic thing I did when we say drastic, we were already putting measures in place when we hired this brilliant finance lead in January to put into place more efficiencies in our system to increase profit margins, right? But the drastic thing we did after 3rd April was to accelerate very quickly all those conversations like Dorothy mentioned about cutting non-essential subscriptions, having expenses processes, and having a very, very detailed financial model that really tells you exactly what is your runway looking like with the worst case scenario happening, which is what we've modeled in. Actually, we modeled in 2 months of lockdown. Hopefully not 3, but we now have that model of worst case, best case, base case scenario. And then before we took a decision about HR. So I think the drastic thing was within what we were working towards for 1 month, suddenly all happened within 1 week. Everybody was just focused on getting a very clear model, clear grasp of the exact number we need to have a 18 to 24 months runway and to assess this impact. And then I think that was how then we made the decision, and then we assessed it, and we realized that we actually didn't have to take drastic firing. And in fact, we didn't fire anybody in our company, but we had a kind of like a wage adjustment across the board. So HQ shared the load to prevent low wage workers on the ground from getting pay cuts, because low wage workers are very sensitive to even $50 reduction in their salary. And then obviously middle management is less sensitive and more understanding of the situation. So we took that approach in how we thought about cost cutting.
Okay. So actually my next question actually is, how are you doing personally? How are you sleeping? How are you coping?
Maybe I'll answer that first, Dorothy, or I'll answer that first. I think for me, my tendency is I'm very used to being very hands-on. So for me to be locked up at home, not being able to personally go out there and talk to customers or get my hands dirty, it was very frustrating. And then to see the numbers that you see is very frustrating. But I think for learning to deal with this situation is to really just have the game plan you have, stick to it. So for us, it's really about, like, we see the number now, we see the number we need to cut, we see the financing options that we need to pursue. We put ourselves in the best position to get those things, or we see the product innovation that we need to do. We do that, and then we know that it's no longer in our control, right? We control what we can control, and then we just accept all these new things, because the situation is very fluid. Like just yesterday, we saw that as well. So we cannot also be too rigid in how we deal with this situation. I think it's a lot to do with just having a clear grasp of the facts, right? Your financial planning, and adjusting accordingly, as you get new information. I think that's very useful for us.
Yeah. I think personally, we're okay. I mean, I'm doing okay. I am grateful that I don't have children yet, so I don't have to deal with my home-based learning. But I mean, as founders, there really is considerable amount of stress that's being added, right? Because not only are we worried about the survival of our company, because not forgetting it, we need to plan for not just surviving this period. We need to plan for like recovery, right? And then rallying up after that, because for founders, we're always thinking about like growth, right? And the company not just need to survive, but need to perform well. So now that we're hit with COVID, we need to, okay, how are we going to survive this plus recover and ready up after that? So that's constantly on our minds. And then the other thing that keeps me up at night is really the livelihood of all the employees that we hire, right? Like what Daniel said. I think each one of them matters. And I think firing, and it's very easy to say, right? But then some of them don't make that much money. So like we hire developers in Vietnam also, right? And some of them like really, like the whole family depend on that one paycheck. So that keeps me up at night, that as much as possible, what can we do to like share the load lah? So we did discuss that if things get worse, then we need to introduce pay cut lah. And management will probably have to set an example and do it first, and maybe take a bigger portion as a, like pick one for the team kind of example being set, and then share it across the board. So at least no one get fired per se, but then you still have your livelihood intact. So those things are basically, I'm sure Daniel shared the same sentiments, like on our minds, like every single day. Like how do we keep the business alive? How do we ready up sales after this? Reacting to all these new measures that's being introduced I want to say every week, but then I think every day something new happens. And then fundamentally at the back of our head is really like livelihood of every single employee.
Yeah, I think having those conversations about salary reduction was very hard for me. I think I think it's less about personal, right? It's more like having those conversations. I think I took it upon myself to have that one-on-one conversation as founders, right? Because it's important that you make the decision, then you kind of do that process yourself, right? You don't make your HR do it. I think that was tough, right? Because I don't think any of my employees perform badly. Why should they deserve a pay cut? But it's one of those conversations that you have to do when you look at the numbers. And we're thankful. I think the employees will understand if your process was transparent. I think Dorothy mentioned a good point, which is very clear communication of this whole situation, very transparent. I think your employees see where you come from and they totally can understand it, right? I think the thing you don't want is to be on the news for something very cold and unprofessional where you didn't share your process transparently and you tell people it's all fine and then it's not. I think that creates a very bad impression on you and your hiring in future.
Okay. Just looking at the time, I would like to actually ask, because I know both of you actually have plan out staff to prepare for the returns, right? Even though now we just got extended another 4 weeks, maybe you can share a little bit about the PCP that you have, and then Daniel, some of the plans that you have for the office managers that you come up with. So I think the thinking actually is to echo what you said just now. We need to bring the company back, and we still need to bring the growth back all the more. So while now I would say the first thing that people think about is cost management, but you actually went a step further and think about how can I build revenue, even though now is not the time to build it up, but at least how do we get ourselves ready for that. So maybe you can share a bit more on the PCP that you plan out and how is it doing.
Yeah, I can start on the PCP. So PCP is a people continuity package that we came up with. We actually brainstormed about this idea as early as like first, second week of March, right? Because we, the sales team is getting nervous about delay in closing deals. HR keeps saying, BCP, put on hold. So I think it was coming off a reaction of like, okay, we need to do things differently now that the times are a bit different. At that point, we didn't even imagine how serious this thing is going to get to, right? But we were already starting to brainstorm, okay, is there a new type of package we can introduce to organization that rides on, because we track employee sentiment, right, at the end of the day, and this kind of environment is like, it's crucial to track your employee sentiment given so much uncertainty, so many changes that's happening. So what we did is we came up with PCP, which is essentially a free package for all organizations to measure employee sentiment over the April to May period. And then circuit breaker was introduced, which was perfect timing for us because our questionnaire in terms of tracking the sentiment was really around work from home effectiveness, mental health, resilience, relationship at work, productivity, things like that. And what we did is we even kind of push it one step further by really, we leverage on the very fact that we noticed there isn't something like that yet in the market. So we wanted to do it very quickly. We literally turned it around and push it out within 2 weeks. So mid-March onwards, we really just chung all the way. And then early April, we launched it. And the intention really was make it a national effort. So we kind of ride on the whole hashtag SG United angle, got SHRI on board, IHRP on board to endorse us on this tool. And the whole idea is really, we want to help, right? Organization right through this, track your employee sentiment so that not only will you be able to get the data to help manage your employees during this time, but also to recover after, because after this whole circuit breaker, they move back to office, is another change management. They have to adjust back to going back to the office. And actually, just sharing some early data that we have collected, more than half of the people that we've surveyed so far actually wants to continue working from home. At least 50% or more will want to continue working from home, which is very interesting insights, right, for organizations to prepare themselves, because we will never know. Maybe this whole experience will actually even change the way we organize our workplace or our processes in the future. So that's what we did. And I think on hindsight, a little bit on hindsight, it was also a move to kind of fight off competitors. We mainly compete with software companies from the States, not really local players. And we think that this is a perfect opportunity to get in because it's free, and we've launched it for 1 week now. And just in 1 week, we have 300 over companies registered already. And we've never seen this kind of never got into this kind of scale of companies before, but this exercise got us into that kind of scale, right? Which gives us a very strong head start, because at the end of it, if we can actually manage to get all these people not only aware of us, but use our platform, then that increases our chances of converting them ultimately into a paying customer a lot higher at the end, right? And that's much better than, in a business as usual context, fighting our competitors on a one customer at a time basis. So we are doing everything we can to hopefully make this PCP work. I mean, in the meantime, there's no revenue, right? Because it's free. But if you think about more strategically, what is the benefit we can get out of this? I think it's tremendous. Yeah.
I think it's a really good tool to shorten the distance with the customer. And it's building up their goodwill, and it's building up. And then the data you shared just now, more than 50% say they want to continue working from home. I wonder whether they're single and they don't have HBR to worry with.
So we actually collect age data also, and we will be putting up a national level report at the end of this. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. Daniel, you want to share your plan?
Yeah, I think we same as Dorothy, we want high quality leads, right? So thinking ahead, given that MOM has basically ruled out housekeeping and as a viable thing to operate in this climate as well, we obviously apart from doing disinfecting cleaning, which is a new product line, we looked at BCP as well, and how we can charge higher value customers who want to do BCP. And for example, their outsourced crew is the only common factor, right? So we can upsell them by having 2 different dedicated sets of crew doing BCP for them. But beyond BCP, I think Office Professionals Day was in April. We were thinking of holding offline drinks event to celebrate the office professionals that run your office. But I think that went down the drain. And so I think right now we look at a similar innovation to Dorothy, right? Basically launching an online campaign to celebrate the office boss or office manager that runs your space thanklessly in the background, especially during this COVID-19 period, for us to basically engage a wider demographic, under business as usual, like what Dorothy mentioned, it was always customer by customer, right? Now we probably see this opportunity to engage the wider community on just giving people recognition during this period of time, frontline workers or office and then build up that kind of association that you will probably want when business opens up, which is a premium or high-end office facilities company that understands what it means to be in your shoes as an office manager and to be able to offer you the value proposition that you didn't have when you underinvested in your facility space pre-COVID-19, right? So I think all this, like what Dorothy says, is not immediate revenue, but it's something you can control during this period of time when business is inactive, to build up that kind of shorter sales cycle down the line.
Okay, thank you very much. So I would like to open up the questions to the floor virtually. We have about 30 people attending the session right now. We have 2 questions on the Q&A. So for the rest of the audience, please ask the question. So actually for Dorothy and for Daniel's background, I think we have about 50% of them are actually investors, 50% are founders. Okay, so the first question that we have from Chin Yu is for Dorothy. From an employee's morale perspective, right, wouldn't it be better to take a deep job cut up front so that you retain employees, the retained employees can have more confidence on their job security? So you just set up, so he gave an example, you say, you cut based on 0 revenue for the rest of the year.
Yeah, so as I shared, I think we didn't have to get to that extent, which is why we didn't do it. We didn't have to get to that point because not only the fact that we just raised, but because we have always kind of operated very, very leanly. Like our rent is only 2K a month, right, for like 20 employees. But I agree with you. I do think that, Chino is my co-founder. We did discuss that if there needs to be any measure taken, it's like ripping off the Band-Aid, right? Like just introduce it quick and fast right at the front. So at the end, at least they know that, okay, it came already, right? And they're not expecting something more to come. I think the other thing that's very important is really transparency and communication. Like I said, I think after we announced them, because we announced something on the first week of April, then we announced something on the second week of April, even though from the very beginning, we've always said that your livelihood and your job security is our utmost concern when we communicate to employees. We do realize that if we keep hitting them like randomly every week, right, without knowing when is the next time, is very difficult. So what we did is, okay, the cadence moving on from here is every 2 weeks, we'll give you an update. If there is nothing, we'll say there's nothing, but there will be an update anyway. So they know the rhythm of when to expect. So in the meantime, like they can take a breather and like not like, oh, something's going to hit me again. Yeah.
Okay. This second question we have is for Daniel. He's asking that now that everyone is working remotely, considering the nature of your business in facilities management, what measures are you taking to allow your business to continue to function? Is that what I was asking, right? You're considered essential service, but that's on the ground.
So the question is about, given most people are working, what are we doing to continue operating this climate, right? Yeah. So for us right now, we are very lucky that we see a spike in disinfecting cleaning. So I think that has been the thing that has allowed us to use idle workers effectively, because officers with confirmed cases or suspected cases in the building, etc., still want a very high degree of a very high accountability to that something is being done. So for that, we have very specialized professional equipments doing misting and certifying a space is that what has been done has been something that we use right now to get by. I think I agree with Dorothy that definitely this whole incident will change the way we think about work, but I think that a lot of people still cannot wait to go back to the office, right? And in fact, I think the change you'll see is that maybe people start to maybe share space lesser and think about building their own space, right? And I think that's where we need to be involved in those kind of conversations. But yeah, I think a lot of but admittedly, this is obviously a big hit for us. So I think thinking of the engagement of a longer term pipeline is where we are looking at right now, because literally, I think from our point of view, MOM is not allowing housekeeping to be done. It's not allowing non-essential offices to open, which would create definitely sales constraint. But I think the other point to make is that we're very lucky as well that we select our clients well. So when you have high quality clients, you actually have a majority of our customers understanding the realities that you face, and they are still paying, still supporting. Even if they have a crew coming on a minimum basis, actually a majority of our customers are still paying full sums, which is very something to be very thankful about. But it's really to do with your customer selection, right? When you're doing B2B, you have that power to do that, right? If you do B2C, then unfortunately you don't have that kind of relationship with your customers. But B2B allows you to have this starting, and so you play to that advantage where you have close relationships with customers, you leverage on that in times of crisis, and you support them well. And I think it's a two-way street. So definitely we're lucky that we have good customers as well.
Okay. The next question we have is from YH. He's asking, both of you, are you considering taking out venture debt or SME loans to tide through the situation?
Yeah, if we didn't get funding, I think we might have to resort to that. Yeah, probably lah. For us, we didn't have to consider this because thankfully we got a cash injection at the end of March. But if that didn't come true, it's like really any form to keep the business alive. Yeah.
For us, I think it depends on the nature of the company, right? So and the stage you're in. So for us, when we are profitable, we have positive cash flow last 6 months, I think the banks will be willing to lend. So we receive positive feedback from banks, and I think we have one firm offer coming soon with banks. But I would say that I think there are many people here in startups and in VCs here, right, that I think not many companies can get traditional bank loans if you're not profitable and you don't have like positive net asset. I think that's something we went through already. So we know exactly what the banks are looking at. Still very traditional. Probably don't waste your time. If you don't have that, they won't entertain your application, because that's just how they behave. But we're lucky in the sense that that's what we could leverage on. And then I think if you are profitable and you have a 6 months of cash flow, the interest rates are very favorable right now, right? So that is kind of like the thing that you can also do to keep the company afloat. So definitely we are exploring SME loans. Yeah.
So actually both Daniel and probably Daniel hear this more from me and Dashing more. It's always about AR management and cash flow management. I think this is actually one of the key areas that we need to keep reminding founders. Startups are businesses. Startups don't live on different kinds of air or different kinds of oxygen. So cash flow is the bloodline for business. So loans is one way, financing is one way, but AR management is actually key. So actually for startups who actually have a big AR, this is actually time that you really need to look at how to structure and how to support yourself better. We have another question from James for Daniel. What were your initial plans for housekeeping and how has it changed since then? Why was it seen as a growth opportunity when it was so different from your core?
This is very cleaning specific, but I think we saw a lot of organic growth coming in because people recognize our service quality. We have good mastery of our supply chain, and our professionalism and capabilities have grown as we are in this commercial sector for a long time. And then we thought that the housekeeping sector is still very much the chemicals and tools being used. I think is not great. And then we thought about providing hotel-like cleaning for households, right? And that's kind of where we went in there. But of course, during this COVID situation, just to stress to everybody, housekeeping is actually not allowed anymore, especially if your housekeeper goes around different units. So if freelancers or not, the MOM has said put a stop to this as well, because for good reasons. They don't want the potential spread of viruses via the chambermaids or housekeeper. On AR management, I also want to highlight that what I probably missed out is that this crisis was a good time for us to bring forward our AR, because in the past, we used to bill customers end of the month and give 30 days credit, which is in fact 60 days to collect. But this crisis was a very good period of time to tell all our customers that we are changing the policy, because we are paying still our employees in full while you guys may or may not be paying us. We will be collecting and invoicing you first week of every month, and it's due in 30 days time. In effect, we shorten it by 30 days, which has been great for our cash flow management. honestly, there was no pushback. And I think only because of this crisis, you get no pushback because people understand where you're coming from. If we did that prior to this crisis, it would be very unusual, right? People would just jump. It's like, how come you suddenly get invoices now first week of the month? But now we've managed to adjust that, and it's been really good. Yeah, I think AR is very, very important. Yeah.
So that's, sorry, we're jumping back to my favorite topic on AR. It's really, so every situation, to me, every situation is a learning opportunity, right? So it's opportunistic for you to make this approach. I think that was actually, make use of the situation to learn that. We have actually 2 more questions on the list. One is, the next one is actually for Dorothy. I'm just going down the list because nobody is voting out. So please, everybody vote up, and so that we know what are the questions that's more interesting for you. So for Dorothy, once the insights are generated from the PCP companies, what can companies do with the insights to move forward, and what role does Engage Work play in moving forward together?
That's a very good question. I think in the PCP, we primarily help organizations gain insights into like 6 main areas: relationships at work, manager support, clear expectations, work from home effectiveness or productivity, mental health, and the last one is organizational effectiveness. So actually they get to see all the questions and how their employees are responding to it. What we are also doing is we are preparing a resource center that all the companies that's going through PCP will get access to. And in this resource center, we've already prepared materials for the individual employees, right? And then for managers who need to support their employees working remotely. And then also lastly for HR, or for organization. And for HR and for organization, we are going beyond just like giving you articles or guide. We're actually pooling industry experts for roundtable session that you can dial in on the webinar. I think it's important to also hear from what other people in other countries are doing, because they may have been doing this work from home, this quarantine thing longer than us. We're also pulling in trying to pull in organizational psychologists, people who can talk about behavioral, right? What can we do to help, employees in terms of the behavioral change element? And at the end of it, the tool is meant to continue tracking, because like I said, the free version, they get 2 cycles, right? But after that, it's still a lot of things to continue tracking, because you have to move back to the organization. Let's not forget that at the background, there's also a recession that's looming. There's a recession that's not coming, it's kind of here already, that will continue to hit all of us. So it's important for organizations to continue measuring the sentiment during this time, and that's where we will also come in and support. Yeah.
Okay. We have one question from Nan. It's a little, I find it a little weird, the question, but please share the government support program that your business is eligible for.
Actually, for this period.
Yeah. Actually, Nan, can you elaborate a bit further? What are you trying to find out? Yeah. Because I would think that actually most of the support program, the government has made it quite transparent on what every company can enjoy, and there's an actual extension of the program from yesterday's announcement. So I'm not too sure what you would like to find out specifically. Okay, if not that, actually I have one more question. That I want to ask the 2 of you. Past couple of weeks, and we asked them what are the topics that actually most concern you during this period of time. So cost cutting is one which we addressed, and then more of the second one. The second highest frequency topic that we get is actually co-founder management. So co-founder management itself is really a tricky topic in good days. So in bad days, it's apparently it's even more so. So I'm wondering whether you could share your take on this, and whether you have any new insights because of the situation.
Daniel, you want to go first, or I can go first?
Happy if you two go first. No problem.
I think for me, I worked with my co-founder for coming 10. Actually, I lost count. I think it's 10 years, but I think 10 years was last year, so maybe it's 11 years. now. So to be honest, like it's like we have already fought all the fights that we can fight, and we have like gone through so much together that this actually COVID-19 is just yet another thing that we're going through together. So having the history of working together and that relationship built it's helpful for me, but this is really very much my experience, right? But it didn't come easy. I think fundamentally we over the years worked through a lot of hurdles to get to where we are today. I think one important lesson is never take the friendship for granted, so the relationship for granted. I think it's like any marriage, right? I call him my work husband sometimes, but it's really like mutual respect, mutual trust. And then when there's this agreement, which by the way, as a co-founder, I welcome this agreement, because that's the whole point of why you also have a co-founder sometimes, to have someone who have differing views from you. If you both think the same way and have the same capabilities, then what's the value add, right, of having a co-founder? And I enjoy the fact that my co-founder is completely different from me, right? The way we think, the way we work, our strengths, our weaknesses are all different. And while I welcome this agreement, sometimes in the past we used to let it kind of, we disagree and then we just move on, right? And just get busy with life, and then we forget to kind of close the loop again, which is something that I think I've learned to maintain or to manage my co-founders, especially at times like this, right, where you have to make decisions very, very, very fast. If there's any disagreement, really just close the loop and not let it fester into anything more, because I cannot count the number of times where he exploded at me and I exploded at him because of like past disagreement that we thought was done. So I think making sure that there's always and I'm being very transparent, this really making sure that it's like any argument between a couple, like close the loop, like are we good? We're good. Okay, let's move on. It's something that is very, very important, but often neglected. Yeah.
Yeah. No, they say you quarrel. You really have business partner problems only on two occasions, right? When your company makes a lot of money or your company makes no money. So maybe it's why you get this question a lot. I think for me, what we do is I think we do our once a week catch ups quite regularly, and irrespective of how busy we are, basically we really make the effort to do one-on-ones. Usually it's not just about work, right? We talk about life. We also make the effort to speak very directly and openly. I think that same as Dorothy, right? We basically, one thing I conscientiously try to do is just to give benefit of doubt. I think a lot of times there is a lot of misunderstanding that can happen if you assume the worst in people. I try to assume the best in them. After all, you chose them to be a co-founder, right? I mean, you've got to just trust that they are not out there to get you. I think that really helps. So really, I think when you look at a certain action, I think I try to make sure that it comes with the best of intention, and I try to clarify where that comes from. And the other thing I try to do is I'm a super random guy. Like during this remote work period, I bought them Ben & Jerry's ice cream. I just delivered to them. Just little things like that to let them know, like, I'm thinking of you, right, during this period of time. I hope you're coping well. So I think these type of little gestures is things that you conscientiously do to show that you don't take the relationship for granted. And I think that goes a long way. I think when people know you're sincere and they it goes a long way, right? Then they know that you don't mean anything very personally. You're just trying to get things done.
So actually, what I'm hearing actually is really very much of both personal and business relationship, but you got to treat it in a very professional way. And like I was just talking to Dashing, being a founder and running a business is actually a very personal commitment. But at the same time, you need to be professional at all levels to all your stakeholders, your investors, your employee, your customers, whatever. But it's actually a very personal commitment to get things done. So there are times you actually can't help it, but you will take certain things in a very personal way. So it's really hard to do that, and communication is actually very tricky. So when you say work husband, I was like, my actual husband, who is actually my work partner, oh my God, you know that kind of challenge, but it's a constant effort. And I really like what you say. It takes time, 10 years. And I think Daniel actually know your partners also 3-4 years already, right?
Yeah.
So it's actually, it's not something that it's not something that happens overnight. Your form, storm, and perform you need to give it time. And you actually need to, a lot of time, you need to reflect on yourself as well, right? So Nan actually got back, and he said that actually he's actually the actual question he's trying to ask is actually if there's any additional programs specific to startup community during this period of time. I'm not sure whether you know this, but my take, maybe anybody I don't know whether we have anybody from ESG today, but my take on this actually is the startup is actually not a tech that's on the government's radar. The government actually has done a lot of things to help startup, but in terms of category, there's no category labeling for startup. So all the grants and helps are actually across the board towards programs, towards all industries, and specific verticals would have additional support, maybe the tourism group, maybe some of the retail group, but not for startup as a segment itself. So if you're looking for those help, probably you should look under SME support. Yeah. So that, does Shin take more? Do you have any take on this one?
No, not much comment from me with regards to all the startup support programs.
Yeah, okay. We actually have another 5 minutes. Anybody, any more questions?
Yeah, my sense is just there's a lot of VCs and angel groups who are trying to create a kind of support for founders, startups, right? So we have just done whatever we can do with AngelCentral. Just go to our AngelCentral /COVID-19. You can find our support program. We are trying as much as we can to support founders. Even if founders just want an hour to talk to us, we are opening up our time. You just Google. There's a lot of support groups who are trying to help founders now.
So so today is actually addressing the community in the virtual room here. The reason why we are doing this is actually because I think my key intention is just to let you know that it's really a very tricky time and you are not alone in this. And when we do this sharing, the idea is learn from each other's experience, learn from each other's ups and downs. And the key thing is push through this period, survive this period, then you are winner already. Because if you don't keep the lights on during this period of time and you just give up, you don't have the next phase to sing. But everybody has a different circumstances, but the idea is support each other and let's push it forward. Yeah.
Yeah, I must agree with Ning, because we were talking to another founder and I realized that the past 8-9 years, a lot of us have been conditioned to keep thinking about growing and then when's the next round coming. All that is irrelevant if you don't survive until the next round, or you survive or you don't make it until you have an option to think about what's next. So I think the immediate priority should be to triage, make sure that you have enough cash to survive. Depending on your industry, some industries you may not expect any funding for the next 12 to 18 months or even 20 months. Right, and then really just try to make sure you survive this period.
Yeah. So there was actually so during the COVID-19 chat that Demo mentioned, right? I had 2 calls with 2 founders who actually asked this question. I thought the framework is actually quite interesting. They asked that during this period of time, I still have some cash. I don't have a lot left, but I have cash. Since nobody is investing, should I just double down and spend my money and try to push for my growth during this period of time? Actually, I see a smile on both your face. Maybe you can share what's your take to this.
I mean, in this crisis, there's opportunities for good deals floating around, right? So those people who have hot cash, I think is going to be in for a good bargain, I think.
No, these are founders.
Founders with cash.
Yeah. And they are thinking they want to They want to double down. Since nobody's pushing for growth, I want to push for growth.
Yeah. I mean, I think honestly, when we were thinking about financing, right, we were also thinking of putting our own money in, and we still are thinking of putting our own money in. So, I think it's if you're in that very comfortable position, I mean, you know, I would, and you're convinced by a business, I mean, you should be, you started a business, then I would say, why not, right? I think I still remain very bullish about my own business, and I think investors also want a founder that would put their own money where their mouth is, and I think it's a good time to double down and put more money in if you have the ability to do so. If you don't, then I think you still need financing. Then yes, you still have to rely on the whole ecosystem. But yeah, personally, I was thinking of it, and I see this as in the grand scheme of things, we have been growing very fast. We think that what we're doing is an essential service, factually speaking, and it won't go away, right? It's just for whether you can tide through the short run.
As in the founder has his or her own cash, is it, to double down? Or you mean like cash in the company?
He has money in the company.
Yeah, that's why I thought, like, money in the company, not like double down like the runway they have on growth lah.
That's what I meant. Double down his runway to boost the growth.
I see. Yeah. My personal take is like I don't know. It depends on like how much of a gamble this is, right? Like I think the founder's job is very difficult, right? Because you're always trying to balance between being prudent and also being opportunistic, as opportunistic as possible. I think you have to really assess how real the opportunities are for the growth that you're talking about and the certainty involved. While I mean, as founders, we naturally are already risk takers, and there's a certain amount of risk we should all be willing to take. I think there's also a line to be drawn of where it's being opportunistic and being reckless lah. But it's very hard to say where that line is, because it depends on the business, it depends on founders, it depends on everything. And the other thing I'll caution against is also, I think there is a certain degree of emotional attachment that may be involved if you bear on too much risk, right? Because it's like, I must make it happen. So I am always very conscious that between Chitong and I, we are like, we are very, very deliberate, we're careful, but at the same time opportunistic, because the last thing we want to do is like, wow, let's just double down. And then when you get into a situation where you cannot lose this, right, then sometimes it affects your judgment call and the decisions that you make as founders. And you're talking about your entire company, not just yourself. I mean, you want to do it for your own personal life, it's up to you, right? But if you're talking about dragging along livelihood of your employees, your investors, then I don't know lah. I think it depends on where that line is, and you need to clearly define that it doesn't cross over to the reckless side. Yeah.
Okay. So I think what Daniel was trying to share is actually he's very bullish and he's willing to commit his own personal resources to make sure the business goes forward. But Dorothy is bringing another point, actually being responsible, and at this juncture, you need to keep the lights on, because if you double down now and you cannot see the lights on in 6 to 12 months, then it's actually very tricky. So I see, I'm actually more on the cautious side for me personally. That's why we were actually having that conversation about, how do we go past 24 months? And in our previous webinar, if those people who attended, you realize that I think Jeff and Henry both were talking about 24 to 36 months. Because for them, actually, they actually see the COVID in waves, right? Because they are in 8 to 12 different markets. They see coming at different pace at a different juncture. Okay, and I'm conscious of time. It's about 5:04 now. Thank you both so much for your time. And I know Dorothy is still busy with the sales calls, and Daniel is still busy working out with your support managers in making sure that the crews are working out on the ground. So thanks so much for taking the time with us today. And for everybody else, thanks for coming today. Please let us know your feedback and what are the things we can support you more. We actually did not plan for more webinars after next week, but now it looks like we need to plan more. So let us know what topics that you want to hear or you want to listen, and we can find resources to share their learnings with everybody. Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.